Hello everyone, SiegeLink here, back with another episode of Starcraft 2 Replays. As you can see, this is going to be a TVZ comeback with shaky hands. This is a TVZ game beforehand that lasted 17 minutes, and it was very hectic, even though I could have conceded far earlier, I didn't want to. And his creep spread was very, very good this game. And as a result of playing another game right after that one, because that game was so hectic, my hands were shaking, as you might expect, my hands were shaking, and it resulted in a little bit of sloppy micro here and there, but far less than I actually kind of anticipated. Even though it has been kind of cold out, it wasn't really cold in my house when this happened. It was mainly because of just how hectic the last game was and how I had like an average of like 200 APM last game. I was just playing crazy. So, hold on a second. Okay, yep. Just need to tab out to make sure this is recording. So, to kind of give you a bit of a heads up on how this worked, I guess I should kind of explain what I'm going to say before this. Zerg players in StarCraft 2 in Diamond 3 and below play like Scarlet and Raynor. They play aggressive, they'll constantly counterattack you with Lings, and they'll make it so you can't go fully aggressive against a Zerg who's going greedy, because if you do, then you're going to lose a bunch of your workers. And as a Terran, in order to actually knock out a Zerg's super powerful economy, you have to go aggressive. Most Zerg players in Grandmaster, as well as Zerg players Diamond 3 and above, what they'll do is they'll play, at least early on, they'll play very campy, and they'll play very greedy, because Zerg has by far the most powerful economy. They can, make 15 drones a second when they've got like 3 hatches. So even if you kill like 20 workers, the Zerg can just replenish that within like seconds. And all that really does is make it so they can't make army units. But if you use all of your army units to kill all those workers, then they don't really care too much. So as a Terran, you have to go aggressive. So as you can see here, he is not getting speed. And he actually is... Hold on. It seems like he delayed his queens a little bit. And he sent this worker here a little early. But as you can see, I'm going for the kind of the traditional 1-1-1 with Hellions. And get an orbital up. And I see this third base. So I run in, try to get damage. But the problem is, I've got just 2 Hellions, and 2 Hellions alone do not do too well. I am still able to do some somewhat decent damage, though. I'm able to kill 2 workers and get a lot of them pretty low. Quite a few of them are one shot away from a Hellion killing them. So, generally speaking, you want to wait for 4 Hellions, because 2 Hellions, as you can see, do decently against drones, but Hellions don't have much health, so it's ideally good for that. And if I had 4 Hellions here, all these drones are dead because they're all lined up. And I still get some very decent damage done. As you can see, that's 13 workers killed. That brings me to around equal. But a Zerg can just get a bunch of drones behind it. So behind I'm getting my production up, getting eBay as well, and yeah, as you can see, he's just drones, drones, drones. And the only downside of this is that he doesn't have... If I didn't go in one at a time with my Hellions, if I grouped up like 6 or 8 at once, and maybe went for even Hellbats, which I actually did this game, then it could punish him. And that's if he goes super greedy, and if that's the case, then I pretty much have to kill like 30 or 40 workers if he goes insanely greedy, which is not guaranteed if you have like 8 Hellbats versus Queens. So here I go for a Liberator, and then build a Reactor so I can get Medivacs. I see a small amount of Lings, and I'm just like, okay, might as well just kill those guys for free, while setting up a Liberator here. He pulled his workers pretty late. That drone almost, that made the Spore almost actually went in there. So as you can see, I've killed 20 workers, and I'm still at around equal worker supply. Now, this was pretty much the worst thing for me. Right when I looked back at my base, that's when he jumped on my Hellions. And that's pretty much, in general, how you lose games like this, and specifically what's about to happen here. Because he killed all my Hellions, he knows that my units, the Hellions that I'm going to have, which I'm not even making right now, are going to be at my base. So I expected that first wave, but I didn't expect the second wave. Because you don't usually see like a small wave and then a big wave. So I just went back to mining and even muled, and that cost me all my workers. So even though I did a ton, wasn't able to really do anything. Because speedlings are so fast, he can just bring them back, drone up, and then, because he knows how many units I have, which isn't much to threaten him, just drone up massively, and then make a massive amount of units. Now, generally speaking, in a game like this, I should have no chance of winning, but he made quite a few sloppy mistakes. First of all, you're overmining this natural base and have not pulled any workers to this base. That's your first big mistake. So I did end up getting a third base, and I've got 6 barracks. So I'm getting my production up pretty well, but macroing is not going to be enough. Even if it's a 3 base versus 3 base, I've got, because of that counterattack of him killing 15 workers, 15 SCVs killed is like the equivalent of like 45 drones killed in this matchup. I know people are going to be like, well, mules. You need to scan. And, mules might seem free, but they're not as good as Zerg economy. And also, they're not infinite. They might seem like they get a massive amount of economy. It might seem like they're free, but they actually are pretty expensive. And if you don't scan, then you have little to no scouting. Generally speaking, this game, my harassment did kind of equal scouting, which generally speaking it doesn't. And that's because he went for just Ling Banes. He didn't go for any anti-air other than Queens. So, my macro behind it isn't perfect. I'm not making too many workers. And it's mainly because I'm just focusing so much on the aggression on the other side of the map. Because I know if I look away for 1 second and like build my medevacs die, that could be a huge blow. So 30 workers killed, and he still has 61 guys to 27. Now it should be kind of 35. That was kind of sloppy on my part. And as I said, I did have pretty shaky hands this game. So we got another small force going across, and I'm meeting up with my groups of guys. And this was probably one of the biggest moments for me. So I load up my guys into medevacs. But right when I do this, it's really unlucky timing for me, but not super unlucky. If I did this like 4 seconds earlier, I would have lost this game because of my super unlucky I'm super unlucky when it comes to timing. And this is proof of it right here. If this was 1 or 2 seconds later, then I wouldn't have seen this. I load up my medevacs, I boost across, my units are nowhere close to his base, and he's got Lings in my base killing everything, and I've got nothing in my base. So I immediately turn around, immediately unload, raise my buildings, and now he's trapped. I was able to get it with a decent chunk of Lings, but that was the first time I actually take an increase in army supply, or at least a solid increase. And I was making a bunch of units, but they're just Lings. The problem this guy had this game was that he had lair tech, but he did nothing with it. He didn't even rush up to Hive. If he rushed up to Hive, that would have been something. But he was staying on just Ling Bane, and as you can see, he's got no creep spread. So this is kind of like a flashback to my last game where the guy, rushed up the Great Spire. The difference being that this guy had a bigger advantage, and he was also kind of just playing like better, I would say. But the difference being that he just didn't have any proper army. And to some extent, he was even playing too greedy, because as you can see, overmining that base, max workers, but he doesn't have that many guys there. Like, even though he's got a bunch of workers, he's not pulling them to the bases he needs to do. Because, like, generally speaking, I would be dead here because I can't get out of here. All my medevacs would just die. But here, I can just constantly redrop and kill a bunch of workers. Because all he's making is just Lings and Banes, which don't attack air. And he's still making just drones. And the big thing is, he's over-mining this base. If he was mining this base, and maybe he expands here, and has creep spread so he knows where my armies are going to be, then that would be something. This right here, I see how his units are just staying here waiting for a run-by. This was one of the biggest turning points in this entire game, and this was a super brilliant play on my part. I've got a Widowmine here, and he doesn't know that. Look what I do. I drop the Marauders that are never going to win this, and then run, so that he'll walk into the Widowmine and blows up a bunch. And this is the second time in the game I take a solid army supply lead. But the big difference is that I've just got a better army in general. I've got 4 medevacs, 3 Widowmines, and I think they have drilling claws. They do not. But they do have 1-1 and close to 2-2. And I've got a huge amount of barracks. Now, this game, I waited a long time for a third base because it was so hectic I had to keep the pressure on him. And I never really had the comfort of making a fourth base, but I do eventually do it here. And just look how many units that look how many drones he's moving here. He's got 80 drones, but he's only got 4 bases. If you're going to go that greedy, then rapidly expand and put creep down everywhere. Because he didn't have creep and he didn't have overlord spread, look at his map vision. As a Zerg, that's terrible. I mean, I have more map vision just by putting 2 supply depots down. And here, I knew he was going to morph a bunch of banelings, so I wanted him to just do that. So here I decided to just split a small chunk. He has an insane amount of banelings, so I ultimately don't end up winning this fight. But I do split well enough to the point where, you know, this trade was good for me. This is one of these moments that I thought I was making units behind it, but I wasn't. And thankfully he didn't attack me. So I scan, and I'm just kind of thinking to myself, you've got to be a Russian 5 or something. And he does eventually get Hive. And, you know, Ultras might have done something. But the problem is this game, he's got so many workers. But, I mean, look at how much he's overmining his bases. Workers are useless if you don't have bases to mine from. This entire game, I've been, like, double the amount of workers down. Despite killing so much. And the big reason that the resources lost tab and units lost tab is so much in my favor is because he's just staying on Ling Bane until Hive. And the thing is, that would be somewhat okay if you're rushing to Hive. Because, like, the last game I talked about where, like, you saw that the guy had just a bunch of useless corruptors early on when I did a replay. That's one of those builds where, like, you can win with that because it's so dumb that your opponents would never face it, and you therefore don't really realize how to deal with it. Because if you don't know how to deal with something, then you're going to lose to it. And, like, if he managed to get, like, you know, highly upgraded Broodlords, and I didn't have anything to deal with it or something, then it could have been bad for me. Even more huge Widowmine hits. Like, this entire game, he just doesn't know how to deal with Widowmines, and Widowmines are a very, very easy thing to deal with. I mean, luckily for him, he's on top of his upgrades, but, I mean, that doesn't mean much when you're just on Ling Bane. I mean, sure, every little bit counts, but, I mean, 35 workers when 14's the max, 13, 8's the max, no guy's mining here, and he's even over-mining this base. Now, if you're going to make this many workers and you're going to over-mine your bases, just make a bunch of static defense. Because I don't know what it is, but, like, Zerg players in Diamond 3 that I always face are horrific at creep spread. They never creep spread. Look, this guy's got 1 tumor. I'm like a Silver League 1 Zerg, and even I spread creep with just 1 creep tumor far more than this. And now I see a bunch of queens slow moving on creep, and I'm like, well, dude, this is what happens when you don't have creep. This kind of happens. And now I'm just killing a bunch of queens for free. I knew that a bunch of Lings and Banes were going to be attacking me, so I just decided to plant my Widowmines down and run away. And now he's got a bunch of Banes. So now all I have to do is just kind of split. And perfect splits. And look, he's making 50 Lings, which doesn't do well versus bio. And sure, eventually it might clean it up, but at huge cost, including this hatchery. Even kill more units. because my Widowmines had Drilling Claws and he's playing so sloppy this game, he doesn't make an Overseer. My Widowmines are just going to stand there and just kill everything. My guy's up, and I've got multiple huge forces here. Decided to go for a drop on this base. And as you can see, I've killed 68 workers, but he's still double the amount of workers as me. But the biggest difference this game is the fact that he's been on Ling Bane. The trades have been so much in my favor. And the fact that he hasn't expanded that much, because he hasn't spread creep well, has resulted in me having... I mean, my economy is around the same as him, theoretically, because, you know, he doesn't actually have, like, proper economy. Like, as you can see, it's not... In some moments, it's higher than it actually is. Like, look, there I just jumped up. And, yeah, it's because of just 3 mules. So, he's got ultras, so now I know what hive tech he's going for. The Widowmines do some decent damage. I lift 1 medevac up. Wasn't that good of a trade. But what I decided to go for is just Liberators. Because I know, against what he has, just getting like 3 Liberators would be fine. And the thing is, this game, I didn't want to let him get to Hive. I know with how much of an economy he has, and how much army I have compared to him, the way I'm going to win this is just jumping on him. He doesn't know how to deal with Widowmines. And I doubt, and he doesn't have any anti-air for Liberators. So just have a perfect setup, attack a base, put Liberators down here, and put Widowmines down here. And he just loses everything. Which is exactly what's going to happen in a second. So I wait until I group up all my units, specifically my 3 Liberators. And I even rally these guys across the map, because why not? But I didn't want to wait any longer. I didn't want to let him get up to like 10 Ultras or something. So I just decided to set up my Liberators here. So his Ultras are just going to take huge damage. Got Widowmines here. Let me put this on normal speed for you. He just runs right into Widowmines, and now that the Widowmine charges are off, all I have to do is split first the Banelings. And as you see, I didn't even need to split. My Marauders just tanked all the damage. And he's just got no army. And if someone's willing to translate that VM in the comments, please do. Because I don't even know what language that is. Que medre de Juanco. I think maybe with that it might be Spanish, but I mean, I have a sister-in-law who's Brazilian, so I somewhat doubt it. But yeah, as you can see, I was playing somewhat sloppy that game, but I was also playing just kind of smart. And this is how a lot of people can just lose games. Like, it almost seems like they're doing, like, do this build to Grandmaster type of thing. Because, like, you're on Mass Ling Bane, you're not rushing up to Hive, and you're going super greedy on workers. It's one thing where if you go, like, for, like, 30 static defense, or something like that, something crazy like that, to the point where I can't drop you effectively. But in this game, he didn't do that. And he barely, like, the few moments he did, it was when he was massively overmining his bases. If he had a massive amount of creep spread and he was building a bunch of bases, then he could have made use of that worker supply. If he made, like, Hydras or even Corruptors, like the last guy did, he could have beaten me because he had just so much more economy. But he didn't. He didn't have creep spread. He only had Ling Bane. He had no anti-air to deal with my medevacs. And I was just able to get super good trades. Which meant that even though he had double the amount of worker supply compared to me, for the entire game, he didn't win. Like, let's just take the... Oh my gosh. Oh, at the end of that game, I killed 100 workers and almost 500 units. It says units lost 507 there, but here it says 461. That's odd. If anyone in the comments knows what that's from, please tell me. But yeah, that will be it for this episode of StarCraft 2 replays. So I'll see you guys in the next one.